Guinea man is part of this cycle of life, forming a passive partnership.
You see, the great prophecies of the Bible bring present-day events into focus.
Operated by missionary pilots, this plane carries personnel and supplies.
Hello, I'm Alan Lindsay and welcome to South Pacific Classics. Today, as always, we offer a window into the world of another time and another place via our historical film archives. The Seventh-day Adventist Church has always been keen to embrace communication technologies. What church leaders probably didn't realise in former years was that their investment into film production would become a valuable resource for historical research. In this next film, we're taking a tour of Adventist mission efforts 1970 style. Pacific Profile is a documentary report focusing on the growth of the church from the period 1966 to 1972. It was produced by Eric Weir for what was then the Australasian division of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Australia, New Zealand and island nations of the South Pacific. A slice of history, Pacific Profile.
Since the dawn of time, it lay beneath southern skies, a land of ancient rocks, sculpted by sun and rain and wind-blown sand. Nature designed its abstract shapes and hid its treasures and spread its far horizons. The first Australians wandered over its burning sand, little dreaming of the mineral wealth that lay beneath their feet, nor of the other bountiful resources that would help build a new world in the seas of the South.
Terra Australis, the continent that nobody wanted, became in less than 200 years the home of a virile new nation in the Southwest Pacific. Sydney, Australia's largest city with its harbour-side setting, is a busy seaport, centre of commerce and seat of culture. On this eastern seaboard is the continent's greatest concentration of population, some 5 million people. Despite the vastness of the land, most Australians live in half a dozen coastal cities. These state capitals, bursting at the seams, thrust up modern towers where first stood the huts and tents of the pioneers. There are city dwellers who rarely see the open spaces beyond. But even in the concrete canyons, there is evidence that this is a fruitful land. Behind the burgeoning cities are rich rural holdings where the legend of an endless desert is shattered, for this is a continent of many faces. The lush coastal belt where dairy cattle thrive merges into a low rainfall hinterland known as the Great Australian Outback, where life is hard and tough men have tamed the land. Across this far-spreading terrain are sheep and cattle stations or ranches larger than some whole European countries. 150 million sheep make Australia the world's largest exporter of wool. Below Capricorn are vast acreages of grain, where mechanical monsters reap a golden harvest. Australian wheat and other food grains, measured in millions of tons, help feed the hungry of the world. Within the Australasian orbit is a sisterhood of friendly nations. New Zealand is an influential power in the South Pacific and has paralleled Australia in terms of discovery and development. The country is noted for its modern cities and its attention to urban beauty. Blessed with fertile soil and ample rainfall, these twin islands abound in scenic wonders and verdant rural landscapes. Remarkable displays of geothermal activity and the colourful Maori people who live in this region are added reasons why New Zealand attracts so many overseas visitors. And spread over millions of square miles of the world's largest ocean are the fabled tropical islands of the South Pacific. This is a realm of volcanic peaks, coral reefs, and storybook atolls, of forbidding limestone cliffs and gentle wave-washed sands. Here are the Polynesian discoverers of these idyllic shores, soft-voiced and sun-tanned, perfectly at home in the sea that surrounds them. This kaleidoscope of colourful landscapes and interesting people, languages and customs is the new world of Australasia, a region of frontiers, pioneers, and achievement. Concurrent with the development of this new civilization below the equator has been almost a century of advancement in the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Australasia. From a handful of pioneers and a nucleus of Adventist work begun in 1885, the church has become a strongly established force in the world of the South Pacific. Across the vast spread of the Australasian division is a wide variety of environments and lifestyles. This wide range of cultures is reflected in the 927 Adventist churches in the countries under the Southern Cross. These meeting places vary from thatched worship shelters on some tropical islands to more permanent structures, depending on the period of development and the economy level of the members. Homeland churches vary too, with some companies preferring conservative design and others using modern styles of architecture. In terms of seating capacity, the largest church in the division is Avondale Memorial, built on the exact site of the humble village church where Ellen White preached at the turn of the century. Various national groups resident in Australia are making a significant contribution to the church. The new Chinese church in Sydney is a fine example of this blending of cultures within the unity of the Australasian Adventist family. European Adventists, now making Australia their home, are adding a rich heritage of faith and loyalty to the church community. 1,000 Polish members are a valuable asset, contributing strength and vitality as they adapt to a new environment in several Australian states. Here they meet in a nationwide Polish Congress at Canberra, the Australian capital. National costumes for special occasions are a sentimental link with their homeland, half a world away. Nearly 1,000 Yugoslav Adventists join with enthusiasm the church fellowship in a new country. At Nunawading, Victoria, they meet in a happy and refreshing congress of worship and togetherness. Other migrant groups include Russian, French, Italian, and Spanish-speaking people. Lively South Americans from Chile and other countries add another facet to the Australasian church. They have helped swell the baptized membership in this division to 112,000 persons and approaching 140,000 Sabbath school members. In fact, 1 in every 179 of the population in Australasia today is a Seventh-day Adventist. The past quinquennium has seen the rebuilding of the Sydney Adventist Hospital, with upgrading to 300-bed capacity in keeping with today's healthcare standards. This has resulted in a stronger base for the division's medical outreach. Since the turn of the century, there has been a continuous school of nursing here, with today's student enrollment at an all-time high. Over the years, more than 1,200 graduate nurses from this training center have made a worldwide contribution to humanity. Health education for the general populace includes a world-proven 5-day plan to stop smoking. A good percentage of successes are registered here. Weight control, nutrition and heart care classes are also features of the hospital's community health program. In New Zealand, an important step forward, the establishment of the Auckland Adventist Hospital, a modern medical unit fulfilling a long-felt need in this section of the Pacific. From Warburton Healthcare Centre in Victoria to Adventist hospitals and clinics in the Pacific Island field, the Human Aid Program goes forward. Auri Adventist Hospital in the New Hebrides is one such unit. It is almost impossible to evaluate the total humanitarian contribution that these hospitals and their Christian staff have made in the islands of the South Pacific. In New Guinea, the medical houseboat Pathfinder brings health care and social and spiritual guidance to the needy people of the Great Sepik River. Pathfinder is the traveling home of a husband and wife team who operate this fine craft. An extremely high infant mortality rate in the villages of the river people has been brought under control through the services of this mobile medical unit. Another advancement in recent years is the utilization of a fleet of church-owned aircraft, transporting personnel and supplies over rugged terrain and long distances with speed and comfort. In the Western Pacific, the Adventist Aztec J.L. Tucker lands on a coral atoll to refuel. Here, the Three Angels motif sets the scene for an impromptu Bible study and witness session by the Union Mission President. Between the far horizons of the Australian continent, across vast rural lands and semi-desert country, Adventist planes are flying in a vigorous new outreach program. First put into homeland use in North New South Wales, some half a dozen light aircraft from the east coast to the west are shrinking the enormous distances and allowing church leaders to make more frequent contacts with field workers and members. Church personnel and laymen fly to remote towns or land on the airstrips of large rural properties in the far outback country on friendly evangelistic contacts that are already showing promising results. The Andrew Stewart, veteran aircraft of New Guinea Mission Service, is now based at the famous opal fields of Lightning Ridge in New South Wales. Here, the fiery opals mined from the dark earth are symbolic of the human gems won for God in the lonely outpost of the continent. A spiritual harvest and a literal harvest. Some of the finest of Australia's cereal crop finds its way into the granaries of the church-operated Sanitarium Health Food Company. In a world troubled by food shortages and increasingly conscious of nutrition, the Australasian Division's Health Food Department continues to find ready acceptance for its wide range of products. A constant research program in the company's laboratories aids in the development of new food lines and ensures that nutritional values are kept at peak level. 13 modern factories throughout Australia and New Zealand produce thousands of tons of health foods annually for distribution by 90 company-owned retail shops and wholesale warehouses. Company revenue sales for 1974 amounted to some $73 million. From its earnings, the Health Food Department makes large contributions of funds to the operational budget of the church's expanding program. One of the first institutions established by the infant church in Australasia was a training school for Christian workers. Now, this small beginning has developed into a strong educational department, with Avondale College its senior unit. Throughout this division, more than 300 schools provide Christian education at various levels. They help youth at the crossroads of life, establish foundations of faith, and prepare them for a useful life vocation. Many will become the ministers, teachers, office workers, and church administrators of tomorrow. Also strengthening the caliber of the rising generation are youth-accented programs such as missionary volunteer and pathfinder activities. Here are healthful associations that will orientate young people towards avenues of Christian living. Whether it be youth evangelism or Christian outreach from the gospel platform, the secret is effective communication. Helping to reach the mind and inner soul of man are various audio-visual aids. films with various applications, radio and television programs.
Scene 17, take 4.
You see, the great prophecies of the Bible bring present-day events into focus, assuring us of hope rather than despair, for Jesus said these things would be a sign of his coming. In the great gospel chapters where he spoke
In
about
Australia, New Zealand and the South Pacific Islands, the Christian message is broadcast through 127 radio and television outlets each week. Consolidating the work of these broadcasts are 13 strategically placed Bible correspondence schools, with a current enrollment of almost 10,000 active students. In 10 years, more than 16,000 have accepted Christ through this radio television ministry. But what form of communication is older yet more modern than the printed page? Literature evangelists in the Australasian division have sold books and magazines worth almost $5 million in 5 years. In fact, during 1974, they delivered one book every minute, every working day of the year. Some of the most rewarding contacts with people come through the activities of church laymen. In times of disaster, Adventist welfare services provide on-the-spot aid, meals and refreshments, blankets and other supplies when needed, and teams of volunteer firefighters and rescue workers. The ever-present need to aid victims of poverty and underprivilege is met by the Dorcas ladies, who have distributed more than 3 million articles in 5 years. In recent times, developing peoples in the South Pacific have moved steadily towards self-government. Within the island sector of the church, indigenous personnel have stepped into positions of administration and responsibility, and this localization plan is expanding. At Sonoma College in Papua New Guinea, leadership development classes for departmental men and local ministers are helping fit these fine workers for greater responsibilities. Upon these men will fall the important task of guiding their own people socially and spiritually through times of change. The traditional quiet life of the islands is passing away in some areas. On Bougainville, for instance, the jungle-covered mountains are giving way to a giant open-cut copper mine. 30 tons of ore in one scoop, 100 tons in every truckload. So the mountain is carved away. Some of the wealth from this massive enterprise is entering the local cash stream, bringing a degree of affluence to the island people. In the shadow of Bougainville's Copper Mountain, young ministerial students from Sonoma College gain experience as they conduct an evangelistic series. Typical of the layman minister team spirit operating throughout the division, local members aid in a massive distribution of advertising material for the campaign. 4 million pieces of literature are distributed annually by Adventist laymen in Australasia. The church's total Christian witness has resulted in almost 32,000 baptisms in 5 years. The people of Musau Island were considered to be a dying race until Adventist missionaries established churches and schools. Remarkable changes took place. Now the 2,500 inhabitants are Adventists, and Bolio Central School is helping to set the feet of the island youth on a better road. Musauans are a musical people and readily turn the journey of life into a song. In a world torn by conflicting forces, where man seeks security through material possessions and technological achievement. The church faces tremendous challenge. But through the dedication of workers in all phases of church activity, and through the harnessing of the great army of laymen, the gospel task will be completed, and God's name glorified among the nations.
At the end of 1972, church membership in what was the Australasian Division was just over 100,000. It is now 4 times that number. Much of the growth has been in the island nations of the Pacific. Papua New Guinea particularly has grown explosively since the Second World War. Now more than half the Adventist population in the region is in Papua New Guinea. The growth across the South Pacific region can be attributed to a number of factors. Modernisation in terms of transport and communications, technologies that supported the spread of the gospel, the cultural transformation of the island nations as isolated tribes came into contact with the modern world for the first time, a continued focus on mission by the church in terms of planning, finances and manpower, and a firm belief in the gospel by those who carried the message. Don't forget to join me next time. I'm Alan Lindsay. God bless.